Chapter 53, final chapter. Actually, I made a calculation in my head very profoundly. If we do it right, we could finish Tanya Yutas Kislev, which means that's the day when, annually we start studying the Tanya again, and then we could decide and move on to the next section of Tanya. Tanya is made in 5 sections. The first section is the primary part of Tanya, 53 chapters. The other ones are much shorter. But after we're done this, we'll decide where to go. But we could finish Yutas Kislev, which would be very special. Just to recap where we're up to here in chapter 53. Chapter 51, 52, and 53 are addressing one primary point. What does it mean when we say that the Shekhinah is found in a certain place? God's presence is found in the Base of Mikdash. God's presence is found in, the Holy of Holies. What does that mean? Isn't God everywhere? And to explain this, we gave a metaphor of the human body, how the soul, which is the source of all life in the person, comes into a certain place in the body, and that is called the brain. And from there, it spreads out to the whole. It spreads out into the whole body in all different ways, in a detailed way where it gives each individual limb its skill, its ability, its function, its nature, with the eye to see and the ear to hear, etc. And a general way where it gives life force to all the body as a whole. And we compare the neshama is the Shekhinah, and we said the brain is the Torah. The Torah, meaning in the big scheme of things, just like it goes in the soul, comes into the brain, and from the brain it spreads out like a nerve center to the entire body and gives life. The same thing, the Shekhinah uses the Torah as a vessel, and from there creates life, gives existence, etc. In this chapter, we're going to examine a little further what we said. We described in the previous chapter that the process of Torah coming into this world and thereby bringing the Shekhinah with it and creating the world, actually, as it creates, it goes down lower and lower in levels. Now, these levels, which are lower, are obviously very high levels. And we generally broke down the world into 4 worlds. Even though we said each one of these worlds have millions or hundreds of thousands of individual worlds, at least 600,000 each one. Nevertheless, each level was given name Atzilus, Beriah, Yetzirah, and Asiya. Each of these levels, each of these worlds have within them their own Holy of Holies, so to speak, their own place where the Shekhinah resides primarily and spreads out to the rest. What is that Holy of Holies? We said the Chachma of that world. Where did we begin this process? We began the process of Malchus Da'atzilus. Malchus Da'atzilus. Now, just to remind ourselves, what is the definition of Shekhinah? In addition to the fact that Shekhinah is, we call it Malchus Da'atzilus, we call it Alma Deskalia, we call it Malchus, we call it Dvaravaya, we call it Maternusa, the queen, many names. What is it really? There is really 2 ways of Hashem's existence, relationship to us, whatever you want to call it. There is Hashem within himself, and Hashem as we perceive him, or her, or it. Hashem as he exists, Hashem as it exists, that is Hashem. No description possible, no name, no, it's something which can't be described. That's the definition of him. He can't be articulated or explained or defined. That's the definition of Bli Gvul. No, nothing could define him. But then is Hashem, how he allows us to perceive him, allows us to try and understand him and grasp him. That's called Shekhinah. So Shekhinah is the part of, I don't want to say part of God, but the aspect of God where we are able to start trying to understand, to perceive, etc., etc. That being said, Hashem starts in Malchus, the Shekhinah concept starts in Malchus Da'atzilus. From there it goes to Chachma of Beriah, and there it goes through all the process till it comes down to Malchus of Beriah. There it goes into Chachma of Yetzirah. Then it goes through the process of Chachma of Yetzirah all the way down to Malchus of Yetzirah. Then it comes into Chachma of Asiya Hagashmis, because Asiya has 2 aspects. The spiritual, Asiya Ruchnis, the spiritual Asiya, which is where all the angels and all the spiritual realms of this world is, or are. And from there it goes to Malchus the Asiya Ruchnis, and there it finally comes into Chachma the Asiya Hagashmis, and it flows down, and that's where the Holy of Holies is. The Holy of Holies is Chachma, the top, the pinnacle of the Asiya Hagashmis, the physical world we live in. That's what we said in the previous chapter. And as it goes down level to level, You could say it's being degraded or being modified, etc., etc.
Or concealed.
Or concealed, or it's coming lower and lower, more and more, let's say more and more concealed. Good. Now, in general, whenever we have in Chassidus or we have in Torah discussion of things going from one level to another, or for that matter, any experience, there's two general ways that it happens. There's something called derech maiver or derech islapshus. Did it affect you or not? One of the things we explained at the very beginning of Tanya is that there are certain souls that are called souls of Atzilus, and certain souls that are called souls of Beria, souls of Yitzira, souls of Asiya. What does that mean? All the souls start in the same place. What does it mean that some souls are called souls of Atzilus? Every soul starts in Malchus Atzilus, so to speak, starts where existence begins. And the answer is that some souls in their journey to come down here are modified, are compromised, are changed, let's use the word, the evolution of the soul. It doesn't come back to the way it left. No difference than if a person puts on a beautiful suit and a beautiful tie and takes a good shower, and then has to walk from here or go from here to Chicago. And especially if it's raining outside, if you have to go through woods and forests. By the time you get there, you don't look the same as you left. You might be 3-4 days later, and the smell of your body might be a little bit different. Your hair is messed up, your suit is dirty. I said, what happened? I thought you took a shower. I thought you came here fresh for your suit. I did. By the time I got here, I'm affected by the experience, the journey. Some people get on a nice limo ride and they arrive 2 hours later, an hour and a half later in Chicago, as fresh as when they left. They just had a nice glass of tea or a seltzer or a drink, a little wine in the car, and they come out of the limousine perfect. They both took the same journey. One was derech maiver. One went in a way where he was not being affected by the experience, and one is derech islapshus. One, every moment of the trip affected him. When he comes here, you see every stain on his from the grass and every piece of moisture on his body from the rain and all the dirt from the trees, etc. It's islapshus means I came and I became integrated with the experience. Obviously, you can't compare it. Someone who's going to climb Masada versus someone who's going to take the cable car up. You can't compare it. One is derech maiver. Hey guys, enjoy the walk. But one guy gets up there all schwitzy, but I'm affected by it. I conquered Masada. I did it. So it doesn't mean one's better or one's worse, but one has an effect on you in a certain way. As a side note, it's a good time to mention, there's a very interesting word in this week's Parsha where it says that Avraham was Zakein Baba Yamim. Avraham was old, he came into the days. And one of the explanations that the Rebbe gives is, Baba Yamim means that you could see on him. What does it mean? He's old, he came in the days. What does it mean? You walked into the days, you bumped up, excuse me, Mr. Day. What does it mean I walked into the days? It means that just like you walk into a house, every single day, the experience was noticeable on him. You saw the effects of the story with Yishmael, with Hagar, with the great moments of the birth of his son, the challenges of the Akedah, the death of his wife. You looked at him, you saw a person that experienced life, meaning some people go through a lecture, go through a class, go to a Fabregan, go to the oil, and they come out, there's no difference. Some people experience it, they're in the moment, they live there, they're present, and they walk out of the change. Wow, that was an incredible experience. I was talking actually with your husband yesterday about this. We were learning about this. And he said some people go to like the JLI conference and they come back and they had a lot of good food, but they didn't really get message of the inspiration. Some people come back and they're inspired completely. They're changed. What happened? One guy was in the moment, and one guy was not in the moment. So being in the moment has its benefits, but also has its effect. That means when the neshama comes down to this world, it's affected. As we're going to see, some of the flow that comes down from this process, from the highest points, from not just Malchus Atzilus, its source in Chachma Atzilus, comes down uncompromised, as perfect as it was, comes down beautifully. And some of it comes down modified. By the time it gets here, it's the same matronushka, what's the word? Matrushka. It's the same little babushka doll in the middle, but there's many, many layers on top of it. So we're going to see that there's a uniqueness to the Holy of Holies that's found in this world that's different than everything else in this world, how it gets down here. And that's what this chapter is going to come, chapter 53. So we're going to start off by answering the main original question and we asked in chapter 51, how is there some place in the world that has more God? We're going to see, yes, there is more God, so to speak, if you could qualify it that way. More God in the Holy of Holies, as we'll see, not just as we said until now, but much more profoundly. But also the Alter Rebbe is going to go back to the main discussion That was the first half of Tanya, the Beinani. We're going to finish off the Tanya with discussion about the Beinani, who is really who the whole Tanya is trying to inspire us, to assist us, to guide us to become at least a few moments in a lifetime to live the life of the Beinani, the person who stands in a moment where there is no sin and there is no mistakes and there is no selfishness. It's all for God. And we're going to finish off the Tanya with that. Okay. So now we're going back to explain how do you have in chapter 53, how do you have the presence of God in a certain place more than somewhere else? And he explains like this. Perek Nun Gimel, page Ayin Dalet or page 147. When the first temple still existed. Now, just to get a time frame from this, the Jewish people left Mitzrayim in the year 2448. We come to Eretz Yisrael in the year 2488, 40 years later. Then 440 years later, in the year 2928, the Jewish people, Shlomo Melech builds the Base of Mikdash, which stands for 400. Hey, Zalman, it stands for 410 years. And then the Base of Mikdash is destroyed in the year 3338. So basically, but this is the Base of Mikdash stood for 410 years, the house that Shlomo Melech built. So in the first Base of Mikdash, which is one of the high points of Jewish history, because we had some low points. One of the some were really tough, spiritually and physically. And yep. In the first Base of Mikdash, at that point in history, they had the Holy of Holies, had the Aron HaKodesh, which in it sat the Luchos, because we know about 30, 40, 50, 60, I'm not sure exactly, but in the last couple of decades before the destruction of this first temple, Yeshiyahu HaMelech took the Aron HaKodesh out of the Holy of Holies and put it in the second place. When Shlomo built the Base of Mikdash, he built two locations where it could be. Location A in the Holy of Holies, location B underneath in some winding, complicated maze of tunnels, which no one will ever find, because Shlomo Melech was smarter than all the modern day excavators, and he hid it where it's sitting until today. But in the first Base of Mikdash, almost the entire time, the Aron, the Holy Ark, with the Luchos inside of it, sat in the Holy of Holies. So we said, what's the Shechina? Now let's hear this carefully. The Shechina, which is Malchus Da'atzilus, the first place where we can start assessing, having a perspective, trying to understand Hashem's process of neshama, soul, life coming to this world. Shehi bechinas gili ein seif baruch hu, shoresham. And in that place, the revelation of God, as we know it, meaning God's essence, no one can talk about, but God's way of self being presented and giving a chance to create and live and give life to the world, what's called Shechina. The Shechina rested there inside the Holy of Holies by the Aron HaKodesh. Not just that, umulubeshes ba'aseres hadibres, and it was enclosed. It lived inside. It was in the 10 Commandments, the Aseres Dibros 10 Commandments. B'yeser se'es, it was more in quantity, more in quality, which means qualitatively speaking and quantitatively speaking, it was much more present, the essence of God. Whoa. And not just was this extraordinary, holy and high in its the presence of Hashem that was found in the Aseres Dibros, it was even higher than the Holy of Holies in the worlds above it, which seems to contradict what we said in chapter 52. He says the level of godliness that was found in the Aseres Dibros was even more than the level of godliness found in the Holy of Holies of the higher worlds. That means we're talking here the Holy of Holies in the physical Asiyah Gashmis, physical world, and we're saying it was higher than the Kodesh Kadashim of Yetzirah, higher the Kodesh. Well, we'll see how high we're going to go, but it was higher than the worlds above it. At least 2, maybe 3 worlds above it. It was higher, which seems to conflict what we said before. We said before it was a degrading, more the process of let's call it the evolution of Shechina into our world. It's less and less. How is it more over there? And he explains now. Fascinating, beautiful. Aseres Hadibros is the nucleus of Torah. Aseres Hadibros has 620 letters. Each one of those letters correspond to the 613 mitzvahs, and to the 7 mitzvahs Rabbanan, the 7 rabbinic laws. Rabbis didn't add on, because you can't add on to Torah, but they revealed 7 rabbinic laws, which are already alluded to and included in the 10 Commandments, and that is, to wash your hands for Hamaitzi, and to light Shabbos candles, the mitzvah of Hanukkah, the mitzvah of Purim, the mitzvah of saying Hallel on Rosh Chodesh, the mitzvah of Shabbos candles, we said that, washing hands for bread, and brachas before you eat, and the mitzvah of Erev, putting up an Erev. So these are the 7 mitzvahs the rabbis instituted and created. All of that is included in a 620 letters. Got 620 commandments. The word Keser, crown. Now, not only that, they say all of the Torah, the Reb Sadia Goyen, one of the original Goyenim in that, if we live in the 10th or 9th or I think 10th century, he explains that every single mitzvah in the Torah is hinted to clearly, meaning you could find it in the Aseret Dibros. Every single mitzvah is found there. If you study it, you'll see that in there, all the mitzvahs are included. This is the nucleus. This is the seed. This is like you plant a seed from a tree, and all the tree's production, whether it's the bark, whether it's the trunk, the branches, the leaves, the fruit, it's all inside that seed. In the Aseret Dibros, everything was there. It's the nucleus. The nafke megay chachmei ilah. Why? Because it comes from chachmei ilah. We talked in the previous chapter. Where does it all start? The action? It starts Malchus Atzilus. The lowest part of Atzilus, it sends forth the Shechina. Well, that is the Shechina. That's where it starts. But where does that come from? That comes from chachmei ilah. In Atzilus itself, there's something called chachmei ilah, the higher wisdom, the essence, and higher than that we know is Keser, which is not just wisdom, it's desire, as we'll talk about in a few minutes. It's the highest of the highest levels. Which that really is much higher than the Shechina. The Shechina is the process that comes from Malchus the Atzilus, the Chachma the Bria, the Malchus the Bria, the Chachma the Yitzir, etc. But Chachma Ilah is much higher than it's way before in any levels than Shechina. Remember, Alma de Eskalia is one of the names we gave in last chapter to Shechina. The place, what does it mean revealed? It's the first place where God can be sensed and measured and revealed and analyzed and sort of comprehended is from Malchus de Atzilus, which is Shechina, which is called Alma de Eskalia, the first stage of revelation. Now, what happens here? Something incredible happens. Usually, when the light comes down from above, it goes what's called derech eslapshus. It comes down, as we gave the introduction before. Each experience modifies and affects it. As it comes down, as you're walking from here to Chicago, you're getting changed. You're getting a little dirtier. You're getting a little schmutzier. You get a little less energy. You're getting modified by the journey. Usually, when the light comes down, like souls that come down here, they come down. They come faster and faster. As they come down, they come lower and lower. What do we say the exception by souls were? Souls of tzaddikim, they don't experience all the worlds. They go bloop, they take a Concorde jet from here to Australia, and they land there, they sat first class, they land fresh as they left. That's a soul from Atzilus. There are certain energies, or there is a certain energy, certain light from Hashem that didn't go through the whole evolution system of Derech Eslapshus, going from Malchus to Atzilus, coming down and getting wearier and wearier and more concealed, but it went blip, it skipped the whole process. Like sitting in a train and passing the woods and the forest, you're not getting dirty, you're not getting schmutzig. You just wave as the forest goes by, but nothing affects you in the experience to modify you or change you or make you less as you were when you left and departed Malchus Atzilus. That means the light that entered the luchais, the energy, even though it came from a place like everything else that came from this long journey, but it skipped the process. It took the express train. It didn't take the regular, the 3 or the 4 that you make every stop in Manhattan. This took you straight to 86th Street, straight all the way, and you got there and you're fresh. The light in the luchais are much, much more powerful than all the levels above it. This is light that's called derech ma'aver. It passed through the system. And why did I have to do that? Because Hashem wanted it to permeate and enter without filter into the world of Asiyah Hagashmis. You see, every world has its rules. In some worlds there are angels, in some worlds there are souls, in some worlds there's rules of nature. In our world, there's rules of nature. And the rules of nature, even when there's a miracle, our mind can understand that miracle. For an example, the sea splits. I could say, okay, that's not what happened here. The sea split. It was a miracle, but the sea, I can even draw a picture of it. The sea on both sides. You have all different stories. The oil burned for 8 days. Wow. Okay, I can tell you how it was. The oil here it is, candle, and it burns. I can explain what happened. There are certain times where it surpasses all laws of nature, and you can't even explain what happened. Let's take the luchos. The luchos were unique, that it was not just that Hashem, the first luchos, carved the luchos himself. Hashem also wrote the luchos. He wrote the second luchos too, but in the first luchos, when he wrote them, it says there was a tremendous amount of miracles. One of the miracles was that the letters went all the way through. What does that mean? That means that if you engraved on one side, you look from the back, you would see that the letter went all the way through. Now, if you look from the side where it's engraved, you see the other side. That means if you have a letter with a mem, a final mem, or a samach, how is that little piece in the middle that makes the samach complete hanging? If I carve all the way, if I want to just take a little here, if I want to carve the letter O in here, I'm going to lose the middle automatically. So the first miracle, which our minds can wrap itself around, is the miracle that the middle, I could draw a picture of that. The middle stayed, even though it was a samach in the Ten Commandments or a final mem, the middle did not fall out, and a miracle happened that even though it went all the way through, it stayed. The next part of the miracle, our minds can't wrap around. What does that mean? When you turned it around, it was still straight. And not just that, according to Mefarshim, according to Talmud Yerushalmi, all 6 sides, if you looked at it, had the 10 Commandments on it. That's something your mind can't grasp. How is it possible for the letters to be straight both ways? Try and draw that. It's impossible. There are many optical illusions that people can create, and they're cool. They're mind-boggling. This one you can't do. How could you have it that from both sides it's straight and read perfectly, and it goes all the way through? And from the right and left side, and from the top and the bottom, all 6 sides. That's a miracle that boggles the mind, breaks all rules of nature, and can't be explained. If you saw it, your eyes couldn't even see it. How could your eyes even see both truths at the same time? You can't. It's either this one or this one. Otherwise, you see a big cholt in the middle. In the middle, it's a bunch of looks like barbed wire. I don't know what it's going to be like. How is it possible? This is something which broke all the rules and didn't follow any of the rules. That is called when light from a higher world comes into this world without a filter, it breaks the rules, and that was a luchos. The luchos superseded and broke and did not follow any rules of nature because it had not process where the light came in and something special happened. It's like the first miracle, that the samach, the middle of the samach, stayed floating, and as they carved all the way through. Good, that's miraculous, but it's cool. I can understand it. The other part, you can't even imagine. So how did it look? You can try and have it as you went through. The letters sort of, there was a path. No, it actually went through. It didn't make sense. It was like the example we gave on Shabbos about seeing the elephant go through the eye of a needle without either one of them changing sizes. You can't picture that. I mean, we could picture an elephant going through the eye of a needle, but in our mind, either the needle gets very big or the elephant gets very small. But to say that the elephant goes through without the needle getting bigger or the elephant getting smaller, it's not something our minds can even picture. You can't even draw a picture or describe it because it boggles reality. That is concepts that supersede the whole rules of nature of this world. That's what was found in the Holy of Holies, both in the Luchos itself, and we spoke last week, in the Holy of Holies itself, that the aura took up no space. It boggles the mind. It measured 2.5 cubits, but it didn't take up space in the room. It didn't have any space. Again, the idea of the Luchos, there's this world of the Holy of Holies. There was a level of godliness there that didn't follow process. It came there from the highest place, as we'll see in a moment. And in order to be engraved in these stones, in these physical sapphire stones, and to be engraved, it didn't go in the regular process where it went level to level to level and it slowly went down. Rather, because if it would have been that way, it would have to follow the rules of nature. In this world, there's rules. Every place you go, there's the rules of the house. This house, take off your shoes. This house, you can come with your shoes on. Every house is different. So I'm going to take it very serious. I've been in houses, you can't come in unless you take your shoes off. And I've seen someone say, I'm not coming in because I take my shoes off. So this house rules don't fit for you. But how did these break the house rules? See, the house rules allow some miracles as long as it fits in a certain pattern. But such out-of-the-box things don't. How did that happen? It did not follow the process. Usually, this world, the way it functions is there's rules of nature that have to be followed in this world. But luchos, we know the luchos, ma'aseh elikim hema, they were a creation of God. Va'michtav elikim. And the writing in the luchos, as I explained before, was completely miraculous, and especially according to the Yerushalmi, the Talmud Yerushalmi explains that all 6 sides you can read, because a lot of times you see pictures of the luchos, aside from the fact that many places make it wrong based on the some old art or some old sculptures of the curved luchos. That's for sure not. But even to know that each luchos, each one of the tablets were exactly cubed. They were exactly cubes in perspective. What's the word? The ratio was exact, not a rectangle but a square. And that's the way, because we read any single way, all 6 ways you could read it. It was a miraculous production.
How about a hologram? I'm not sure how that works, but that's a good
What do you mean a hologram? A hologram?
Mm-hmm.
But that's just light. I don't know how it works.
But it doesn't look like.
Right. So again, it's a very cool. By the way, science has come very far to create things that boggle the mind.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I used to say that some people can see from one end of the world to the other. Today we could. You could sit in one end with a WhatsApp or a FaceTime and talk to the other end of the world. You can have voices that transform us. Voices that permeate, and the technology is discovering that some things that it says in Torah are not so impossible, not so crazy. Meaning, in its time, it's a miracle. But when it comes later, it's not a miracle anymore. If you would have seen back in the day, a horse and buggy going without the horses, it's like, wow, what's going on here? Today it's called a car. So basically, what's miraculous at one time, each generation, the fact that things could fly, airplanes, these are all Hashem's gift that it says in the Medrash, in the Zohar, on Parshas Noach. As they're closer to Mashiach, Hashem is going to allow the well springs and the depths, just like it came out by the flood, all the rain. The wisdom of both science and Torah is going to come out. Chassidus and technology came at the same time, and it's billowing out at a tremendous pace, what we're seeing. But again, there's a difference between a miracle you can explain and a miracle that your mind can't wrap around. Even to explain what happened is not possible.
When the luchos got put away wherever they are right now, did the Shekhinah go with him?
We'll get to that actually later in this chapter, a little about the Shekhinah. Not necessarily answer the question, because I don't know the answer exactly, but the short answer is we're talking about that the Shekhinah today is in the area of learning Torah. The Shekhinah today, the presence is found within the study of Torah, which, if you go back to it, is really the metaphor of the Kodesh Kodashim in the first place.
So the Shekhinah is kind of a more finite.
It's not finite. We're talking about the Shekhinah. Here's the thing. There's the Shekhinah as it is. We mentioned 3 aspects of the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah, we gave a metaphor of the soul. There's a soul as it is for itself. What the soul is, its own living power of godliness. There's a soul as it gives life to the body. And there's a soul as it gives life to every single individual limb, its skill, its ability, its gift, its nature, eye to see, etc. Those are 3 aspects of the soul. And the same thing, the Shekhinah in this world. There's a Shekhinah as exists for itself, which is the Shekhinah. There's the Shekhinah as exists as a source for life in the world, and the Shekhinah that gives power to every individual thing to have its ability, for the bird to fly and the animals, the zebras to have stripes, all the things that make each creature unique comes through the Shekhinah too. It's the brain, it's the nerve center, it's the distribution center, the grand central station of all life on this planet. But we're saying that in one place it's even more. So explaining where it's even more is this starting point, where it starts off, this brain, where it rests. The Shekhinah is found much more in the brain, just like your soul is found much more in your brain, because the brain is the nerve center of your entire body. And by the way, we mentioned this before, and that's what you have this in time, you have it in place, and you have it in people. In time, it's the Holy of Holies. In place, it's Yom Kippur, and in people, it's a Rebbe. And each of these 3, or times of the Base of Mikdash, was the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, in the Holy of Holies, it was a perfect storm. The Achas V'Shana, everything came together. But again, going back here, so that's, by the way, why we say that in the Holy of Holies, what was the key element of service on Yom Kippur was the incense that filled the room with smoke. Because the word smoke in Hebrew, Ashan, stands for Olam, Shana, Nefesh, place, time, and person. It was the ultimate pinnacle of all those 3 things that make up all existence in the world. But back inside here, so in this physical thing comes to rest the reality of that which is above nature. The Michtav Elekimhi. It's the writing of God, which is higher than nature. Which all of nature, how does nature exist in this world? All of it, how does anything exist in this world? Remember, the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the pinnacle, the source, the nucleus of each one of the worlds, we say the Holy of Holies of each world, does two things. It gives life, meaning it creates the world and makes the world exist, and gives vitality and existence to each individual creature. We said, for an example, the Holy of Holies of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Chachma of Bria, creates the angels within it, creates the levels, and creates all the, meaning it's a starting point. It's a bottom of the tree. It all grows from there. It all comes from there. So if that's the case, everything in this world comes from the Holy of Holies of Asiyah Hagashmis. Everything in our world comes from the nucleus of this physical world, the lowest of the four worlds, and in the four worlds itself, the physical part of the four worlds. That all comes from the Holy of Holies of Asiyah. But this, the luchais that's found in the Holy of Holies, doesn't come from there. It's it skipped, meaning you have put in this world something which is otherworldly. It's from a higher world. Where does it come from? Let's see what he says here. So everything in this world, including the physical space and all the nature and the rules of existence of this world, it's called scientific facts, the science, as we say today. Nimsha, everything comes from the Kodesh HaKadoshim of Asiyah. From there comes all the light, the life force of Elam Hasiyah, which includes this physical world, planet Earth. Ella Bechines Chachmi La Datzilus, she clovas Atayra, she bedivs Lamshav Malchus Atzilus, but the light which is found in the Luchais bypassed from where? It came down, and he says it came down from its source is Chachma Datzilus. Again, it is a lot of technical Kabbalah words, but we're talking about some high stuff. It's Chachma Datzilus that expresses itself in Malchus Atzilus, comes down into Chachma of Bria, to Malchus de Bria, and usually that should go down a couple more levels. No, from Malchus de Bria, right into the Luchais. That means the light of the Luchais never went through process like the rest of this world. Everything else below Malchus de Bria went through Chachma the Yetzirah, and Malchus the Yetzirah, and Chachma Dasya Aruchnius, Malchus the Yetzirah Aruchnius, Chachma the Asiyah Gashmius, and finally to us. No, this bypassed the whole second 2/3 of the process. It went right past it and directly from Malchus de Bria into the Luchais. That means the light that's found in the Luchais is not only the highest point in this world, it's the highest, it's higher than anything found in Asiyah Haruchnius and anything found in anywhere in Yetzirah, including Chachma the Yetzirah. It's something which is otherworldly. That means this is a whole, and that right here answers the question. How could you have within this world something where there's more holiness? Because yes, in the Holy of Holies, it skipped process. And the light of God that's found in the Holy of Holies skipped the process of pattern of creation, and what's there is higher than anywhere else. And that is again in Olam, Shana, and Nefesh. It's in time, space, and person, and Ashan. That means somewhere in this world, there's the Holy of Holies where there's more otherworldly power than anywhere else in the world. There's a day that has that, and there's a person that has that. This is a key element of understanding Hashem's function in this world, that there are things that, so to speak, broke the worlds. We took the express train, they took the Concorde, they went first class. And this unique revelation of God is unique, and this was found, when was this in a revealed state? Only in the 410 years, from the year 2928 to the year 3338. Those 410 years is when this was existing, this super incredible power of godliness that was found in the Holy of Holies. And by the way, the whole world sensed it. It was something which is unbelievable, that Shlomo Melech put together, and that stood till it was destroyed by the Babylonians.
So now it doesn't have this strength.
Oh, so we're going to see. We're going to explain two more stages. We're going to explain the stage how it was in the second Base of Mikdash and how it is today. So the second base of Mikdash that stood 70 years later, it was rebuilt in times of Ezra, and then it stood again for 400, this time 420 years, a little bit longer. It was a taller building and it was a more lasted longer, had some other qualities, but there was something different. It didn't have it. It didn't have that full level, as we'll see, and there we'll see where that light came from in a second. Oh, what time is it? Yeah, we'll do 2 minutes. Al Yedei Slab Shusta, top of the next page. Biyud hadibreis hachakukais beluches sheb aron. Benes umaisel likim chayim. It was through a tremendous miracle that it stood through, and it came through and lived within the luchas in the first temple. So I want to take a moment to explain something phenomenal about, because all of this is also true. This is all Torah. The way this comes here, that means, remember, the vessel is Torah. So somehow the Torah, or in this case, the Shechina, as in clothed within Torah, came down to this world in a super fast way, skipping all the process. What does this mean? In general, we take all of Torah and divide it into 3 categories. There's Eidus, let's say it this way, Mishpatim, Eidus, and Chukim. Or Chukim, Eidus, and Mishpatim. What are these 3 categories? Chukim are laws that don't make any sense to us. Not to mix wool and linen. Take the blood of a red heifer and sprinkle it in someone who becomes pure. Don't eat the fats of certain animals. So, I mean, laws of kosher, as much as you find some reasons for it, they're laws that don't have a reason. They're odd, they're weird. Don't plant grapes and wheat in the same field. I mean, sometimes stuff we do, it's like this. It's like, what was he thinking? Where'd it come from? Then you have laws that are obvious laws that we said if God didn't tell us, we'd know on our own from learning from other creatures in the world. We would learn to not steal from an ant. We'd learn about modesty from a cat. We'd learn about working hard from a bee. We'd work about ethics and things from all, and they're logical. Don't steal, don't kill. At least at one time it was logical anyway. So these are the logical commandments. They're called mishpatim. Eidos are laws that don't really have a logic to it that we would have thought of on our own. But once Hashem tells us, that makes sense. You know what? Put on tefillin. It's a symbolic thing on your arm next to your heart, and the letters mean this, and it's 3 times here as the seichel, the 7 lines here on middays, and the whole beautiful. Who would have thought of such a thing, to tie black straps and black boxes to your arm with scrolls inside of it? Now you tell me matzah. I never would have dreamed of eating matzah as a holiday, but now you explain to me, symbolic of the Jews leaving Egypt and no ego when it's flat. These are mitzvahs that have some eidos to testify, the testimonials. So here's what you should know. What's the definition of chukah? Chukah are things that we said that don't make sense to us. So let's take a step back. We find the word chukah about the luchos. Nechkak, it was engraved. What does engraving mean? Engraving is unique from writing on a Sefer Torah, because when you engrave something, the letters and the item become absolutely one. Its essence is one. There's no other added ingredients.
You cannot erase.
First of all, you can't erase it, and when it's there, it's one. You can't say, well, here is the letters and here's the rock. It's one thing. When you have it ink on parchment is 2 separate things, even when they're connected. Certainly how a Torah is written, where it has to sit ink on parchment, where you can scrape it off with a knife, that's how we have to write it. For sure it's separate, but even if the ink would be like ink that you have in other places, where it seeps in, there's still, scientifically, there's a leather, there's a parchment, and there's the ink. But meaning there's 2 ingredients there. So you have really in Torah, how we see it today, we see a lot of times as 2 different things. What does it mean? We see laws, let's say for an example, laws that don't steal, don't kill, don't commit adultery. To us, they're logical things. Hey, it's a logical thing. Why we say that? Because we're seeing them as ink on parchment. We're not seeing as they are in their essence. How are they in their essence? In their essence, in their source. You think Hashem told you not to steal because stealing is unethical? It's like somebody who, I was trying to think of an example before the class today. Somebody who has a, I can't think of it. I'll tell you what the concept is. Somebody who, here, I'll tell you an example. Here, this is an example I heard from somebody. Somebody has 2 eyes. So you say, no, why he has 2 eyes? It's because that gives you depth and vision. That's why Hashem made it. You think Hashem gave you 2 eyes because that's depth and vision? Hashem gave you 2 eyes because he gave you 2 eyes. The fact that it has a benefit, depth of vision, is a benefit. Hashem could have given you 3 eyes, and you'd say, no, we have 3 eyes, because it gives you a 3-dimensional, very good view. If you have 1 eye, You know why we have 2 ears? We have 2 nostrils. You know why we have skin? We have hair. We come up with reasons, science for everything. You think that's the real reason? You think that's what God was thinking? He has to have depth of vision. Hashem gave you 2 eyes. It happens to be his depth of vision. In other words, there are some times that somebody wants something called ratzon. Ratzon comes from deep. I can't explain to you why I want this. I want a red car. I want a red sports car. Why? I can't give you a logical reason. But then someone's going to start talking about, you know what? Because it goes faster to shul. I can get the shul much faster, and it's easier to find in a parking lot. That's not why I wanted a red sports car. You want to start talking reasons like this. All the mitzvahs of the Torah, really, the reasons are made up. Don't steal is made up. Matzah is made up. What is made up? It came after the fact. The reason we eat matzah is because Hashem in the world of Keser and its highest source of Sai, we eat matzah. The fact that we have a reason today is a very external part of it. It's like, well, why do I want a red car? Because it's easy to find in a parking lot. That's not why I want it. I don't know, I just like a red car. It talks to me. So the reason why Hashem wants us to eat matzah, not to steal, not to kill, or not to do any other sin, but to honor our parents, not because it makes sense. It's because that's what Hashem wants. We give it reasons. There's a very low relationship to the mitzvah. You want to really be a Jew? Don't do it because it makes sense. Don't do it because you understand it. Don't do it because it's logical. Do it because Hashem wants. That's the ultimate. Then you do it even when it doesn't make sense to you. All the mitzvahs that came down to this world came down through a process where it got on these, I don't want to say fake, because it's not really fake, but these added on reasons. But the chukkah didn't. The chukkah never compromised its value, its truth, that you see it here as it is above. There's no reason above, and there's no reason down here. Shan is red heifer. You know why there's no reason? Because there's no reason. No one gave it a fake. It skipped the process of getting a fake reason. In other words, the chukkah is an example. Chukkah, in its essence, as a mitzvah, is just like the engraving that's found in the 10 Commandments. It's engraved means there's no compromise, no additions. This is how the mitzvah is above. But Eidos HaMishpatim, you could think, the way I see it here, you're seeing it different than Hashem sees it in its origin. In its origin, there is no reason. There is no logic. There is no, because stealing is unethical, because it messes up the ownership in the world. It messes up the system of, rights. And it's because God said, don't steal. All the added on reasons were added on, and meaning it evolved to how we see it. We see the mitzvah diluted. We're missing the boat. We're missing the point of the mitzvah. The reasons came later. Chukkah, you see the original. What you see is how it was. No reason here, no reason there. So in the word chukkah, you see the same thing as the 10 Commandments, something that skipped process and came down here, how it is above. So we'll finish for today with the first Base of Mikdash, and that is that the way we see the luchos here jumped directly how it is above already, Malchus de Bria, and it came down here in this way, and that's why it doesn't conform to the world. It doesn't conform to the rules of Asiya, because it didn't follow process. I didn't get here. It's like certain world's ambassadors in some countries. The law says you have to have your bags checked, not me. I got an ambassador. What's that word? Not ambassador. Another word. Diplomatic immunity. What's diplomatic immunity? Is laws. Not for me. I come from a higher place. People have diplomatic immunity to all the laws of this nature. It could be, you could read from this side and from that side, from this side, because the rules don't apply to us. We skip process. And that is the uniqueness when it says in the beginning of this chapter 51 that you have in this world, Shechina or godliness more present? Yes, because godliness in that spot didn't follow. Usually, life in this world follows a system, but that's like a chukkah. That's like a chakukah engraved in the luchos, where it skipped process, and what you see down here is not in the process, and therefore there is more life, more vibrancy, more vitality, more kedusha, more sanctity, more atzmos found in that place. Now, truth to be told, everywhere it has it, but everywhere it comes through process. Malchus Malchus Ko'elami. The Malchus of Atzilus is the same Malchus of all the worlds, but not how it appears. It went through process. Malchus that's of Atzilus, where's it really, Malchus of where's it really found? Only in the Holy of Holies.